She was 8 years old, with dark brown hair tied into two uneven ponytails and a bright red raincoat that was already beginning to soak through. She held her mother's hand as they walked toward the bus station, jumping over puddles whenever she could. Her mother, Emily, was in a hurry. They were already late. "Come on, Lily," Emily said gently. "We have to catch the next bus." But Lily wasn't listening. She had noticed the old woman. The woman was sitting alone beneath the edge of the station roof, but the wind was blowing the rain sideways, soaking her anyway. People were everywhere. A businessman walked past while talking on his phone. Two teenagers laughed as they hurried by. A young couple stood under an umbrella, complaining about the weather. A man carrying groceries stepped around the woman's suitcase without even looking down. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if she was okay. Nobody seemed to care. Lily tugged at her mother's hand. "Mom." "Yes." "Why is that lady sitting there?" Emily glanced over. For a moment, she saw what everyone else had seen. An old woman. A stranger. Someone who probably needed help. Then Emily looked at the clock above the station entrance. "We're late, sweetheart." "But she's all wet." "I know. She's cold." Emily sighed. "Maybe someone is coming for her." Lily stared at the woman. "Nobody is coming." Emily didn't answer. Lily looked again. The old woman was trying to stand. She placed one hand against the wall and pushed herself upward. Her knees shook. She made it halfway. Then she slipped. The photograph fell from her hand. Lily immediately let go of her mother's hand. "Lily!" The little girl ran through the rain. She picked up the photograph before anyone could step on it. Then she walked straight toward the old woman. "Are you okay?" The old woman looked up. Her eyes were tired. Not just tired from the rain. They were the eyes of someone who had spent too many years learning how to hide pain. "I'm fine," she whispered. Lily frowned. "No, you're not." The old woman almost smiled. "I suppose I'm not." Lily took off her small red hood and placed it over the woman's gray hair. Her mother finally reached them. "Lily, what are you doing?" "Helping her." Emily looked at the old woman. "I'm sorry," she said. "My daughter." "Don't apologize," the woman interrupted softly. She looked at Lily. "She has a beautiful heart." Emily crouched beside her. "Do you need an ambulance?" The old woman quickly shook her head. "No." "Do you have somewhere to go?" Silence. Emily looked at the suitcase, then at the photograph in Lily's hands. "Do you have family nearby?" The old woman's lips trembled. "I had a son." Emily didn't know what to say. The old woman looked away. "His name was Daniel." Lily sat down beside her. "What happened to him?" Emily gently touched her daughter's shoulder. "Lily, don't ask." But the old woman didn't seem offended. Instead, she looked at the little girl. "Sometimes," she said, "children ask the questions adults are too afraid to ask." She took the photograph from Lily. It showed a young man standing beside an old woman in a garden. He was smiling. The old woman stared at the picture. "That was my son. Where is he now?" Lily asked. The woman looked toward the rain. "I don't know." Emily's expression changed. "What do you mean you don't know?" The woman folded the photograph carefully. "I haven't seen him in 11 years. Lily's eyes widened. 11 years? The old woman nodded. 11. Emily glanced at the suitcase. "Why are you here?" The old woman looked down. "I came to find him." The bus arrived. People began rushing toward the doors. Emily looked at the bus, then at the old woman. They were supposed to be on that bus. But Lily didn't move. "Mom," she whispered. Emily knew exactly what she was asking. "We can't leave her." The words came out before Emily could stop them. She took off her umbrella and held it over the old woman's head. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated. "Margaret." "Margaret," Emily said. "Let's get you somewhere warm." Margaret shook her head. "I don't have money." "We didn't ask." "I can't repay you." "You don't have to." Margaret stared at Emily. For the first time that day, someone was looking directly into her eyes. Not at her clothes. Not at her suitcase. Not at her age. At her. Emily helped Margaret stand. Lily grabbed the suitcase. "It isn't heavy," she said. Margaret gave a small laugh. "No, sweetheart. It only looks heavy." They walked into a small cafe across the street. The owner looked uncertain when he saw the soaked old woman. Emily ordered 3 cups of hot tea and a bowl of soup. Lily sat beside Margaret. "Why are you looking for your son?" Margaret took a deep breath. "Because I was wrong." Emily listened quietly. Margaret's voice shook. Years ago, Daniel wanted to marry a woman I didn't approve of. She looked down. I thought she wasn't good enough for him. Lily frowned. Why? Because she was poor. Margaret swallowed. I believed money told me whether someone was worthy. She closed her eyes. I told my son he had to choose between her and me. Emily remained silent. And he chose her. Margaret looked at the photograph. They left. Did you never call him? Emily asked. I did. Then why didn't you find him? Because I was too proud. Her voice broke. I waited for him to come back. She wiped her cheek. Every birthday, I expected him. Every Christmas. Every Mother's Day. Every time the phone rang. But Daniel never came. Then, years later, Margaret learned that his family had moved. She tried to find them. Addresses changed. Phone numbers stopped working. Years disappeared. Eventually, Margaret became ill and lost most of her savings. Her house was sold. She had nowhere left to go. But she still had one thing. The photograph. And a name. Daniel. I found an old address, Margaret said. It's in another town. Emily looked at the suitcase. That's where you're going? Margaret nodded. I don't know if he's still there. And if he isn't, Margaret stared at her tea. Then at least I will know I tried. Lily reached across the table. You should find him. Margaret looked at her. Why? Because if you love someone, you shouldn't stop looking for them. The old woman began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quiet tears that had waited years for permission to fall. Emily placed a hand over hers. Margaret whispered, I used to know that. The next morning, Emily drove Margaret to the address. Lily insisted on coming. They arrived at a small blue house near the edge of town. Margaret stood outside the gate for nearly 10 minutes. She couldn't move. What if he doesn't want to see me? She whispered. Emily looked at her. Then at least he'll know you came. Margaret knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. A neighbor stepped outside. Can I help you? Margaret looked nervous. I'm looking for Daniel Carter. The neighbor's expression changed. Daniel? Yes. He's not here. Margaret's face fell. Do you know where he is? The neighbor hesitated. He moved away years ago. Margaret closed her eyes. Do you know where? No. Lily stepped forward. But somebody must know. The neighbor looked at the little girl. Then he sighed. His wife passed away a few years ago. Margaret froze. Passed away. The neighbor nodded. She had cancer. Margaret's hand went to her mouth. And Daniel? He left after she died. Where? I don't know. Margaret sat down on the front step. The journey had ended before she had even begun. She looked at the photograph. I was too late. Lily sat beside her. No. Margaret looked at her. Sometimes people aren't gone just because we can't find them. That sentence stayed with Emily. It stayed with Margaret, too. They returned home. But Emily couldn't forget the old woman. She began searching online. She found old records, old newspaper articles, community posts, names, addresses, nothing. Then one evening, Lily came running into the room. Mom, what happened? I found something. Emily turned around. Lily was holding Margaret's photograph. I looked at the back. Emily took it. There was a handwritten note. 3 words. Maple Street, room 214. Emily searched the address. It was an old rehabilitation center in a neighboring city. They called. A nurse answered. Is there a patient named Daniel Carter? There was a long pause. Yes. Emily's heart stopped. Is he still there? Yes. Margaret was sitting nearby. She heard the words. Her hands began shaking. Daniel. The next morning, they drove to the rehabilitation center. Margaret was terrified. She almost refused to go. But Lily held her hand. You found him. Margaret looked at her. I found him because you stopped. Lily smiled. The hallway was quiet. Room 214 was at the end. Emily knocked. A man's voice answered. Come in. Margaret entered. The man sitting beside the window was older than the photograph. His hair was gray. His face was thinner. But Margaret knew him immediately. Daniel. The man looked up. His eyes widened. He stopped breathing for a moment. Mom. Margaret covered her mouth. Neither moved. Then Daniel began to cry. Margaret walked toward him. I'm sorry. Daniel shook his head. I thought you hated me. I hated myself. He looked away. I waited for you. I know. No, you don't. You don't. Margaret sat beside him. I waited too. Daniel wiped his face. Why did you come now?